The anime starts off on a seemingly ordinary day. Everyone goes about their business, unaware of the tragic fate humanity is about to experience. Soon enough, people start having heart attacks randomly, and chaos ensues as drivers and pilots share the same fate. In the apocalyptic-like wasteland, we see a pink-haired woman leading an army of cloaked figures. Amidst the chaos, we see a ragtag band of orphans running back to their home, the Hayakuya orphanage. Among the children, we see our two main characters, Mikhaila Hayakuya, a blonde, blue-eyed, selfless, and friendly boy, and Yuichiro Hayakuya, a moody, dark-haired, green-eyed boy. As the group keeps running, an announcement blares informing us that a fatal virus has been released on humans to punish them for their sins. The announcement also notes that there is no cure and that their fate has been sealed. Inside the orphanage, the kids are shocked to find their kind caretaker having succumbed to the same fate as the rest of humanity. The next moment, the announcement continues, noting that any child below the age of 13 has been spared, and the third progenitor, Cruel Tapes, is collecting every child. Not a moment later, a cloaked figure appears at the orphanage window, and with a simple touch, the window shatters into pieces. Another cloaked man casually opens the door, and soon enough, the children find themselves in a military convoy heading to an unknown location. 4 years later, we now find out that the cloaked figures are vampires, and they are treating the children they have abducted as livestock. Harvesting their blood in exchange for apparently keeping them safe, Yuichiro, now 12 years old, hates the vampires and the way they treat them as objects, refusing to even eat the disgusting food provided. Meanwhile, Mikhaila manages to maintain a more positive attitude, noting that at the very least they're still breathing and that they weren't separated from their little family. Yu gets into conflict with some vampires, which he refers to as fangs, in an attempt to seek justice for two little girls who are harmed by the bloodsuckers for playing in front of them. Although Yu tries his best to make the fangs apologize, he is no match for these supernatural beings. Just as he is about to be thrown off the bridge, Mika tries to plead for his forgiveness. Thankfully, Farid Bathory, a vampire noble and the seventh progenitor, happens to walk by, saving Yu from certain death. But the only reason he even stepped in is because Mika has been giving him his blood in private for various benefits, like real food and some privileges. We now see a flashback to when Yu and Mika first met. Yu went from being an anti-social loner after being abandoned by his parents and almost killed by his father. Mika offered him a chance to become part of their little family, just like the other orphans. Eventually, the two became brothers, ready to do anything to help each other. Surprisingly, their sister Akane informs Yu that Mika somehow managed to get the ingredients to make real curry, and Yu now realizes that Mika has been giving his blood to the noble for their sake. Later that evening, Mika returns from Farid's mansion, informing Yu that he managed to get him a pistol so that he can fight these vampires whom he hates so much. Mika also gives him a map of the city they're in, which they can use to finally escape this cursed place. At night, the two boys lead their family to the escape route they found on the map, and although they manage to avoid danger along the way, they're shocked to find Farid waiting for them at the city's exit. He reveals that he has been manipulating poor Mika all along. Without wasting any more time, he directly grabs one of their little sisters and drains her of her blood, throwing her lifeless corpse on the floor. Yu is enraged and tries to attack Farid with his pistol, but the noble easily dodges. Meanwhile, Mika is horrified, realizing that his actions have put his whole family in danger. As Farid continues taking care of their siblings, Mika turns to Yu, determined to at least allow him to escape. He grabs the gun and dashes towards Farid, but before he can do anything, Farid instantly impales him with his hand and removes the arm holding the gun. Yu manages to grab the pistol as it falls to the ground and gets close enough to headshot Farid, seemingly killing him. With his dying breath, Mika tells his brother to escape, but Yu refuses to abandon his family. In a desperate attempt, he tries to drag Mika to the exit, knowing that Mika has no chance of survival. Mika angrily shouts for Yu to leave. Barely managing to hold back his tears, Yu dashes to the exit with a heavy heart. Mika is happy to pass away, knowing that this was the first time Yu called them his family. Outside, as Yu shouts out in pain and grief, he stumbles in the snow, only to be found by a group of humans who ask him if he wants to help them in their quest to eradicate the vampires. Hugging the man after losing his entire family, Yu states that he's ready to do anything if it means killing every vampire in the world. 4 years later, we see a more mature Yu in a military uniform, casually walking among the debris of the destroyed city. Yu remembers the time he spent with his family in the vampire city, where they were all happy together. However, their happiness ended abruptly when the vampires murdered them. Yu is also tormented by the thought of leaving Mika behind to die while escaping. 4 years later, Yu fights a monster known as a Horseman of John to take revenge against the Bloodsuckers, disobeying his orders and resulting in being suspension and punishment. To return to the army, he has to cooperate and make friends, but he is struggling to do so. Shinoa Hiragi becomes his surveillance officer, tasked with keeping him in check and making sure he doesn't make any violations. Yu remembers meeting Guren Ichinos, the man who found him on that cold night and promised him the opportunity to kill vampires. However, he has not kept his promises of yet. In the locker room, Yu notices some teens bullying another boy. Although he initially wants to ignore the situation, he decides to step in after one of the bullies threatens to feed the boy to the vampires. Shinoa informs him that fighting civilians is a violation, so with no other alternative, Yu ends up getting beaten and becoming the errand boy of these bullies. The boy, Yoichi Sadomi, apologizes to Yu for involving him and notes that he has been trying to get close to one of the bullies in the hopes of using his supposed connections to join the elite unit, the Moon Demon Company, and get revenge for his sister who was killed by a vampire after she managed to protect him. Later, a vampire escapes from a laboratory, and Yu decides to avenge his family by killing her. He interferes before she can bite a student and engages in a fight with her, although the vampire seems to easily regenerate every injury Yu manages to inflict. Yoichi appears and manages to stop the vampire from draining the other student's blood. Enraged, she attacks Yoichi, but Yu blocks her attack. In a fit of anger, she grabs Yu by the throat and jumps out of the window with him, but he manages to stab her in the stomach as he lands on the ground. However, the vampire is unharmed and prepares to deliver the finishing blow. Thankfully, Guren appears and manages to end the vampire with his cursed sword. As Yu falls unconscious after his new friend Yoichi falls on him while hugging him, he dreams about his family being happy that he has finally managed to make a new friend. They tell him that they can finally stop worrying about him. As they leave, Mika's image tells Yu not to live for revenge and to take care of his friend instead. Yamanaka prevents his companion Yuji from opening a room covered in spell tags. As they leave, Yuji looks back and the door opens slightly. On the school's rooftop, Yu receives a love letter from the girl he saved from the vampire. Shinoa shows Yu her cursed gear Shikamadoji, which amazes him. Yu attacks Shinoa to test the weapon's strength, but she overpowers him with no effort. Yamanaka and Shishido chase after Yoichi, begging to become his disciples. They want help in finding their friend Yuji, who entered the Forbidden Chamber and never returned. Yu, Shinoa, and Yoichi agree to help and go to the chamber. As they enter, Shinoa explains that the weapon inside holds a demon weaker, but similar to her cursed scythe. Yu tries to seize the cursed axe from Yuji, who is controlled by a demon, as he desires more power to face the vampires. The demon attempts to possess Yu, but he expels it after seeing through its illusion of his brother. After seeing this, Shinoa says she will recommend Yu for the training class. In the vampire castle, in the same place where Yu managed to escape from, Farid nonchalantly calls out to an older and surprisingly very much alive Mika. In a ruined city district abandoned by both vampires and the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, a horseman of the apocalypse attacks a group of humans. Thankfully, Mika, now a vampire, intervenes and kills the horseman, earning the gratitude of the humans. One of his fellow vampires mocks him for trying to protect the humans, since in his eyes they are only livestock for them to feed on. However, he praises Mika for his strength and asks if he really became a vampire by drinking the blood of the third progenitor. Mika remains unfazed by his taunts and casually walks away, noting that he has no interest in proving anything. While the vampires claim the district and announce that they will protect the humans in exchange for their blood, Mika is approached by a girl he saved who offers her blood to him. Looking at her, he reminisces about how cruel Tapes turned him into a vampire 4 years ago. In a flashback, we see that shockingly, Farid was only pretending to be dead. As the seventh progenitor, he could have easily evaded the bullet even at such a close range. Cruel theorizes that he allowed Yu to escape on purpose. She demands an explanation from Farid since one of her two Seraphs managed to run away, while the other is on the verge of death, referring to Yu and Mika. After a brief altercation with Farid, where she casually smacks him away like a fly and pins him to the ground, Mika then turns to Mika, offering him eternal life. However, without thinking twice, he refuses with his dying breath. Annoyed and claiming he has no choice, she forcefully feeds Mika her blood while kissing him. Back at the high school, Yu stumbles into a pink-haired student, and without saying much, the two hotheads start fist-fighting. Shortly later, a bruised Yu meets with Yoichi and Shinoha, ready to attend their special lesson with the Moon Demon Squad Lieutenant Colonel Guren. After a short introduction, Yu goes to take his seat, but is shocked to find the same pink-haired student sleeping with a book on his face in his chair. The two recognize each other, and soon enough, they start bickering again, while the rest watch on in mild amusement. After the lesson, the pink-haired student, introduced as Shiho Kimizuki, visits Guren in his office, claiming that with his talent, aptitude, and top grades in every subject, he should be guaranteed a trial for the highest-ranked Black Demon Series cursed weapons. Guren nonchalantly questions his motive for wanting to rush and gain strength, although he notes that he knows of his situation with needing money and unrestricted treatment for his little sister, which the Moon Demon Company can provide. Guren points out that in his current unstable state of mind, the demon within the cursed gear will easily feed on his desire and possess him. Shiho isn't convinced, so Guren releases his cursed sword, demonstrating how demons feed on rage and desperation, while Shiho can only tremble in fear, unable to move. Guren ends by saying that the current Shiho has no chance to wield a cursed weapon. Later, the students begin their combat test against some cursed army puppets. Being handcuffed to each other, Yu and Shiho have a rocky start, dragging and bumping into each other. The test is momentarily paused as Shiho is summoned to the hospital since his sister is in critical condition. Afraid that he might fail to make the selection for the cursed gear, Shiho decides to continue the test instead. However, when Yu finds out about his situation, he punches Shiho, saying that he'll never see his sister again if she dies. Now in the hospital room, the doctor informs Shiho that his sister managed to push through this time. However, with the current treatment, she won't be able to survive much longer. Shiho resolutely states that he'll soon join the Moon Demon Company, so his sister will receive the best treatment. Meanwhile, you can only listen dejectedly as he's still handcuffed to Shiho. Outside the hospital, Yu and Shiho proclaim that they won't let anything get in the way of their goals, and eventually accept each other, forming somewhat of a friendship. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see a part 2, then leave a comment. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Take care.